Hi, I'm Dennis Pethers. Over these next 4 sessions, we're going to be thinking about how do we engage with people who are outside of church, people that never come along to the things that we do. Probably you're watching this because not long ago you were on a rooftop and you were looking out across your community, or you may have been on a hilltop looking out across it, I don't know. But as you did, you were thinking to yourself, God, how do I get a vision for people that are out there in the town, in the city where I live? How do I get a vision for the lost people that you have a vision for? And you thought about how you might reach them, who they might be. And as you did that, I wonder if you thought to yourself, well, do I really want to reach these people that are different from me? I don't know about you, but in some ways, sometimes we think we'd like to reach the people, but when we think about it, we feel actually they're quite different from us. They're not actually very much like us, so do we really want to reach them at all? Sometimes we can think to ourselves that actually if we really do reach those people, they might come along to our church and they might change things a bit. They might make it a bit different from how we like it. So actually, although we know we should reach those lost people, when it comes down to it, perhaps we don't really want to reach them at all. Perhaps we haven't got a vision of God's heart for those people. Perhaps we would like them to become like us before they can even think about becoming like Jesus. Our attitude, the way we think about lost people, can actually really affect what we then do when it comes to reaching out to them. Remember a number of years ago I was in England where I live, and I was talking with some people that I met at a conference I was speaking at, and this lady told me a story about her church, and her church was in a market town in a city in England called Hereford. And she was telling me that a while before we'd met, she was telling me that in her town the city had just opened a nightclub. And what it meant was, in the town where they lived, on every Saturday night, hundreds and hundreds of young people would catch buses from all the villages around this town to come into the town and go to this nightclub. And then at about 3 o'clock early Sunday morning, all of these young people would then go to bus stops to catch buses back to the villages where they lived. The interesting thing was that the bus stops were right outside of Hereford Baptist Church where this lady went. And so about 3 a.m. every Sunday morning, suddenly hundreds of young people descended upon bus stops right next to Hereford Baptist Church, and they waited for buses, and well, they weren't very respectful for Hereford Baptist Church building. They used the walls at the side of it to as a bathroom, as a toilet. They even did things that young people do when they've had lots to drink around the area of the church that most of us would not approve of. And so the church had a meeting. They had a church meeting, and at the meeting, their decision they were trying to reach was, how would they get rid of this problem of these young people coming along to Hereford Baptist Church building at 3 a.m. on a Sunday morning and doing things that they didn't approve of. And they were trying to think, what should we do? Should we write to the local authority and say close the nightclub? Or should we write to the bus company and say move the bus stop? And this lady told me that as they were discussing this, and deciding which of the 2 options they should take, she asked if she could speak in the meeting. She raised her hand and asked for permission to speak, and they said, yeah, you can speak. And so she stood up and said, aren't we asking the wrong question? She said, for years as a church we've been praying that God will send young people to our church, and now they're here. Hundreds of them are coming, and what we're trying to do is to remove them, to get rid of them. What would Jesus do? Surely Jesus would show them love, and surely Jesus would want to actually be among those people and help them to understand who he was. So rather than getting rid of them, shouldn't we actually be loving and kind and compassionate towards them? She said, shouldn't we be at the church on a Sunday morning at 3 a.m. and open the doors for them and say, come inside and use the toilets, and let's give them cups of tea to drink and help them to see that we love them? And everybody looked at her, and then she stood up and she said, I'll go there at 3 o'clock every Sunday morning. And then 3 other ladies stood up and they said they would do the same thing. And what happened was that church started, and this was years ago and it's still running, started a thing called Night Shift, where every Saturday night, week after week, month after month, year after year, they have welcomed those young people. And now some of those young people have come to faith in Jesus Christ. And those that have come to faith in Jesus Christ are sharing what they believe about Jesus with other young people that don't know him yet. You see, their first thought was, how do we get rid of these people that are different to us, that do things we don't approve of? But then they saw that the attitude they should have should be that of Christ Jesus.